What's good? What's good? This your boy Manny, and welcome to the Talking Sports with Manny podcast. Welcome to the channel. So yeah, man, let's talk football. Crazy week 2. Tons of injuries. Let me go ahead and read you guys a list of people that are injured that have gone on IR that are going to be coming back pretty soon. Well, not pretty soon. Some guys are going to be out past the required 4 weeks. You got DJ Chark, Puka Nacua, you got Audric Estime, you got Christian McCaffrey, big one that has hurt a lot of people. He could be coming back week 9, week 10. I'm not a doctor. I'm just saying. Tua Tagovailoa just went on IR because of the concussion, and he's going to have 4 weeks to really prepare his mind and seek second opinion and kind of see if he's going to continue playing football. I think he will. The NFL wants him to keep playing football, but he has to do what's best for him and his family. You got Marshawn Lloyd. Man, I was so excited to have Marshawn Lloyd. Now he's going on IR. In Dynasty, you could possibly purchase Marshawn Lloyd right now for a third-round pick. He was going for a second-round pick in most leagues because of the upside and somebody who can potentially take the job from Jacobs. But now with the injury, you possibly could get this guy for a third-round pick. Whew. Excuse me, guys. All right, so we have Cooper Kupp, who potentially could be going on the IR as well. After week 1, I was saying, man, if Cooper Kupp can stay healthy, he could potentially be wide receiver 1 in fantasy this season. But now he's back to the Cooper Kupp that continues to get hurt. You have Jordan Love. You have Russell Wilson, who continues to miss time. You have T. Higgins, continues to miss time. A.J. Brown missing a couple weeks. You got Deebo Samuels. You got Jake Ferguson, David Njoku, Malik Washington, who has not played yet. Then you have the season-ending injuries, right? You have Hollywood Brown, you have J.J. McCarthy, Rondell Moore, and then you got people that are eligible to return from the pub, guys like T.J. Hawkinson, Nick Chubb, Jonathan Brooks, Keaton Mitchell, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who is a sneaky pickup in redraft leagues because he's hurt and nobody's looking at him. This is the time to go ahead and grab Clyde Edwards-Helaire because Pacheco being hurt could open up a door for Clyde Edwards-Helaire to return in week 5, depending on what that injury is. Ricky Pearsall, you got Jelani Woods, Odell Beckham Jr., Kendrick Bourne. So those are the guys that haven't played this season but are eligible to return in week 5. So now that we got the injury bug out the way, let's talk football. So plenty good games this week. There's plenty of surprises. Before I dig more into the week, Jordan Mason, man, with CMC, my prediction being that he's possibly coming back after 9 or 10 weeks. He's worth a 25-second round pick right now. You might want to go ahead and purchase because he's going to give you production. After 2 weeks, he has 2 solid weeks of 20-plus points in fantasy. So why not? Why not? I'm going to pull up my little guideline, and then we're going to kind of go over different things. Like we're going to look at trends. We're going to look at a small sample size of 2 weeks where people are. The biggest thing that is amazing to me right now is that Chris Godwin is the wide receiver 1 in fantasy. He was a guy that a lot of people faded in Dynasty because of the age, because of what Mike Evans has done with Baker Mayfield. But Chris Godwin, you cannot forget that this guy was literally a top 3 wide receiver a few years ago. So insert this season with touchdown upside, right? And then Baker Mayfield finding this guy. So right now he's wide receiver 1. I know it's a small sample size. Things change rather quickly in fantasy. But here's what I want to look at here. Back in 2019, Chris Godwin finished the season as the wide receiver 2. And that year he had 88 receptions, 1,300 yards receiving, and 9 touchdowns. Anytime Chris Godwin is getting the touchdown numbers, like even in year 2018, he finished wide receiver 29, and in years 2020, yeah, he was wide receiver 31. But the thing about Chris Godwin is that he's a touchdown getter. Like those 2 years that I mentioned, he had over 800 yards and then 7 TDs. Didn't have a lot of receptions those 2 years, but typically he's a guy that could get 104 receptions like he did in 2022. The thing about Chris Godwin is that he gets the job done several different ways. So we've seen him as a touchdown guy in his wide receiver 2 year, right? Then we've seen him as a guy with 104 receptions. He finished wide receiver 19. This year, I'm not saying he's going to be a top 12 wide receiver. I'm not even saying that he doesn't finish wide receiver 1. But what I'm saying is that anything can happen. So far this year, he has 15 receptions, 200 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Now, the numbers on pace, he's on pace for what? 1,700 yards, right? He's on pace for 17 TDs. I mean, he's getting anywhere between 7 to 10 receptions a game, which is pretty awesome with 15 there. This pace is going to be hard to keep up, but Chris Godwin so far has looked great. If the touchdown numbers go up, it bodes well for him. And the reception numbers are always going to be there. He's a guy that hovers around anywhere between 83 receptions to 104. So he's an 80 reception type guy, right? So if he gets the touchdown numbers, which is 7 to 9 TDs, right? The yards are going to come. This could be a year where he gets potentially a career high in yards. If he kind of keeps this pace, keeps this pace, he can potentially get over the 1333 yardage total that he had back in 2019. But yeah, Chris Godwin, biggest surprise so far right now as the wide receiver 1. Like I said, guys, it's a small sample size, and it's all about health as well. Who stays healthiest the most? Like Cooper Kupp, a guy that I was saying could be a wide receiver 1 this year, he's hurt. So that kind of pretty much knocks him out of that wide receiver 1 type potential, or, a top 12 type guy. So I'm going to pull up my numbers here, and we're going to kind of go and look at trends and just kind of look at what's going on. So right now, the QB1 in fantasy football is not Derek Carr. So this stuff right here is not in order. You guys, please forgive me. Oh, number 1 in fantasy football right now is Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield is the number 1 QB in fantasy football. He's had 2 amazing weeks. And then Derek Carr is number 2. So if you were getting Baker Mayfield or Derek Carr later in drafts, for these first 2 weeks, you're enjoying the fruits of your labor. Both guys are kind of like tearing it up right now, putting up solid numbers. I'm using Sleeper to kind of find my stats, but Sleeper doesn't seem to want to organize this stuff. It's kind of all over the place. And then your league settings is also key as well. In most leagues, they'll say Derek Carr is number 2. In some leagues, they'll say Baker Mayfield. So I'm going to use Yahoo. Let me go ahead and use Yahoo. Trusty old Yahoo that always does the right things for me. So while I'm pulling that up, we're also going to talk about some waiver trends this week. Like, who do you pick up? I mean, if Derek Carr is available in your redraft leagues, he's somebody that you want to pick up and consider. He's outplaying guys like Patrick Mahomes. Like in this particular league, I drafted Patrick Mahomes, and Mahomes has not been Mahomes. I'm still waiting for that breakout game. But the minute I bench Mahomes, he's going to go off. And it happens literally every single year. So I'm going to do all available players. All right. So, yeah, Baker Mayfield is number 1, even on Yahoo. Derek Carr's number 2. But different leagues have different scoring settings. Number 3 right now is Jalen Hurts. The rushing upside is even with the 3 picks so far this year, which is unlike Jalen Hurts. In fantasy, it's all about running the ball, right? Running the ball, you get those extra added bonuses. Kyler Murray, number 4. Lamar, number 5. Jaden Daniels, number 6. Josh Allen, number 7. A-Rich, number 8. Geno, number 9, which is a big surprise for me that Geno's here at number 9. He's been solid. He's been consistent. 10, Sam Darnold. CJ Stroud at 11 and Patrick Mahomes at 12. You guys will not believe who's number 13 right now. That's Deshaun Watson. That just shows you how bad the QB play has been. Has it been because of lack of preseason? Has it been because of lack of practice? New OCs on different teams. There's different factors to why we're getting these terrible plays from QBs. My boy Andre's in the building. What's up, man? Appreciate you hopping on the stream. Please like, please subscribe, and please share. Back to this list. Where is Mahomes? Mahomes got to be further down this list. Oh, no, sorry. I passed my bad, guys. Mahomes was number 12. So he's kind of hanging around in that top 12 QB thing. But yeah, there's some certain QBs that are down here that, Tua with the injury, he's out for a while. Dak Prescott, Kirk Cousins, these are guys that are, typically in the top 12. Guys like Brock Purdy, Joe Burrow. These guys are struggling right now. T-Law, even a Russian QB like Justin Fields, he's way at the bottom. It shouldn't be. Like Justin Fields is like QB 24 right now. And usually he's a guy that runs the ball and he's at least minimum in the top 15 because of the Russian upside with QBs. Let's go ahead and look at the wide receivers right now so far in the small sample size. Like I said earlier, guys, Chris Godwin is number 1. Nico Collins is number 2. And that's pretty dope. Malik Neighbors number 3 because of the amazing game versus the Commanders. Let me say something, guys. There's always going to be inflated stats versus anybody who's playing the Commanders. That's just kind of how it is. They have the worst passing defense in the entire league. Start every single pass catcher versus the Commanders, and you should get some success. Andre says, my team took a big hit, bro. I lost RB1 Pacheco, and K9 is banged up. Didn't you just trade for Pacheco? I'm not sure. From the show last week, I saw something about Pacheco, but yeah, man, right now with that whole KC backfield, there's nobody that I can trust right now in KC. So even with Kareem Hunt, I've picked him up in Dynasty. He's a stash. We don't know what the situation is going to be. Mahomes is going to use all 3 backs, Carson Steele and Kareem Hunt and the other guy. So I don't know what it's going to look like with those guys. Andre says, who's the RB1 in KC right now, in your opinion? Yeah. Right now, I would say Pirine because Pirine is a vet. Pirine is a guy that you can trust, right? But Carson Steele is a rookie, and then Kareem Hunt hasn't really played football. So right now, if I had to choose, I'll put my money on Pirine. But it's still going to be an ugly situation, a 3-headed monster. I says, yeah, I just traded for Pacheco. Yeah, that's why, personally, I don't trade for running backs. And I think you gave up quite a bit to get Pacheco as well. Running backs stay hurt. Like that's why I don't fade running backs, but I find them cheap. In the waiver wire, I just attack RBs, and I was able to pick up a guy like Bucky Irvin right before the game, and then lo and behold, Rashad White got hurt, and he's in danger of missing week 3. So we don't know what happens there. But back to this list, Malik Neighbors is at number 3, Cooper Kupp at number 4, Jaden Reed at 5 with that big week. Justin Jefferson had an amazing week 2 at 6. 7, Jameson Williams, man. Jameson Williams have given us 2 solid games. A game of 5 receptions, 121 yards and a score. And then another game where he was targeted 11 times, 5 receptions for 79 yards. If there's a scenario where Amon-Ra St. Brown is to miss week 3 or even week 4, Jameson Williams is going to be heavily targeted. This is two games now with 20 targets with 10 receptions. So Jameson Williams, man, he's starting to be a thing. So he's definitely a guy that I will put in a claim for if he's available in your leagues. Alec Pierce, another solid week. 5 receptions for 56 yards and a score. He's looking good. 2 solid weeks. Alec Pierce is up here. He's on waiver wires. He's a guy that you might want to pick up. As long as Josh Downs is out, it seems like Alec Pierce is the favorite wide receiver in that offense. Even with Michael Pittman being there, I like what Alec Pierce is doing right now. So we're at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Alec Pierce at 8. Right, Rashad Shaheed at 9. Man, all this guy does is catch bombs, man. I saw a post earlier today with his 11 career TDs. The smallest yardage in TDs for Shaheed has been 19 yards. Everything else is like in the 20s and 30s and the high 40, 70-yard TDs. I mean, he reminds me of a Deshaun Jackson type of player. You can say boom or bust, but, man, as long as he continues to get these TDs, he's great. He's best in a best ball type setting. Devontae Adams is followed by Deebo Samuels. And I believe that rounds up to 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Oh, actually, Devontae Smith rounds out to 12. Those are your top 12 wide receivers. Devontae Smith had a great game with A.J. Brown being out. People forget how good Devontae Smith really is. So yeah, that's pretty cool right there. So let's go ahead and look at the running back position real quick. So Kamara, man, 3 touchdown game. He has 5 touchdowns on the season. He's looking like the MVP of the league right now. If they continue this pace of high scoring, I mean, between Alvin Kamara and Derek Carr, one of these guys should win some kind of award if they continue this high pace offense. This new offense is pretty great. Andre writes, I'm 2-0, and someone offered me Jamar Chase and Deontay Johnson for Kyren Williams and Godwin. Should I take it? Now, if you need running backs, keep Kyren. It's kind of hard to get running backs, right? Jamar Chase is off right now, but once he starts to ball out, he's going to go crazy. Deontay Johnson should play better with Andy Dalton taking over that QB room. Cincinnati has been, Carolina Panthers have benched Bryce Young. I'm going to talk about Bryce Young in a minute and what you should pay to acquire Bryce Young in Dynasty, but it's an interesting trade. It says, should I take it? It says, I have Hurts, Kyren, Connor, A.J. Brown, Godwin, Laporta, Mason, and then on the bench, you have Pickens, Odunze, Dwaddle, Mostert, Hunt. Yeah, I'm not taking this deal. You take this deal, you're going to weaken your RB room. And it just takes one injury to Connor, and, man, you're crying for a back right now. Yes, you have Mason, but Dwaddle and Mostert and Kareem Hunt, we don't know about those guys. Mostert's been hurt. So I would definitely keep your RB. They're the hardest things to find. And then Chase is not performing at a high level right now. Not saying that he can't, but you have guys like Pickens who can come in and, give you some spark there. You have A.J. Brown, you have Godwin. Like, you have a good thing going. Keep your team together. I know you feel like you need receivers, but no. Running backs are the most important things in redraft leagues, especially. Although I don't value running backs, they are very, very, very important. So I would say hang on to your backs. All right, back to my list. You have Kamara, you have Devon Achane. Achane is a guy I faded in Dynasty only because of the injury risk and the injury factor. But for right now, man, he's been targeted 14 times. He's caught all 14. And then with Tua being gone, how is Devon Achane going to be used? Is it going to be an uptick for him, or is it going to be a decline for him? He does have 32 carries right now, which is amazing. I think it's the receiving upside that kind of gives him that edge. I believe he leads all running backs in total receptions right now. Moving on along, Saquon Barkley, number 3. J.K. Dobbins, number 4. The biggest surprise is, as long as he stays healthy, we know that J.K. Dobbins brings the heat every single game. 5, Brees. 6, James Cook with that magnificent game on Thursday night. Jordan Mason at 7. James Conner at 8. Ramondre at 9. Gibbs at 10. Mixon at 11. And Tony Pollard at 12. So in this particular team, I'm lucky to have Jahmyr Gibbs and Tony Pollard. You can find backs anywhere. Like Tony Pollard was a guy that I got late in drafts, especially in redraft. Guys like Montgomery's out there. Brian Robinson Jr. had a great game. He tore it up. I think he averaged like 7.1 yards per carry, 17 carries for 133 yards. I love Brian Robinson Jr. as the guy, and then having Eckler as that complement. So those are guys that you should target, whether it's redraft, whether it's Dynasty, whether it's best ball, doesn't matter the format. These are definitely guys that you should be targeting. I think that Brian Robinson Jr. is going to just get better and better and better as the season goes on. 2 solid games so far, a 17-point game and then a 14-point game. So if he gets these goal line carries, his numbers could look even crazier. So career day for him, definitely rock with Brian Robinson Jr. Bijan Robinson, he's given us flashes, but he just hasn't given us that breakout type performance yet because of the lack of touchdowns. But he is a phenomenal talent. He was well on his way last night. I thought he was going to have a great game in terms of like all around, but 16 points is 16 points. I mean, you can't fault that. Charbonnet got to step in for Kenneth Walker, who's banged up, and he had a 17-point game. To be followed with his 12-point game in week 1. So with these backs, I don't want to dive too much into these backs. It's going to go up and down. There's going to be a lot of injuries. So handcuff your backs. Have as many backs as possible. Let me get these in order. So that was Taco that I responded to earlier. And Augusto says, my RBs are Hall, Kamara, Etienne, Ford, and my wide receivers are London, Rice, Neighbors, Godwin. Would you recommend me to trade Godwin and Ford for Flowers? I wouldn't do it. This is why. London has the better QB in Kirk Cousins in terms of catching and receiving, right? We don't know who Lamar Jackson is. Sometimes Lamar Jackson can find guys like Flowers. Sometimes he finds Isaiah Likely or Andrews, right? So you never know who's going to get off in that offense. But Ford is very serviceable right now. I know you got the backs, but Ford is very serviceable right now. I do think that London could do some things. I'm not a big London fan, but London could do some things, and he could give you the same production, if not more, than Flowers. Like Flowers and that whole Baltimore passing offense, I don't trust it. So, yeah, I wouldn't make that deal if I were you. Yeah, please please subscribe if you haven't already. Augusto writes, I want to trade Ford, London, and Etienne. What trades would you recommend for me? Etienne is a guy that I'm excited about. I would keep Etienne, but if you are going to trade Etienne, you can get a top-tier wide receiver for Etienne. So a guy like Jamar Chase right now, people are down on Jamar Chase, but we know what Jamar Chase brings to the table, especially when he's fully healthy. When T. Higgins comes back. Matter of fact, trade Etienne right now for Jamar Chase. Jamar Chase is going to be playing the Washington Commanders this week. After this week, it's going to be hard to acquire Jamar Chase. Jamar Chase is going to go for like 10 receptions, 160 yards, 2 scores. Jamar Chase is going to go crazy versus the Commanders. If Higgins is healthy, he's going to go crazy. Like, it doesn't matter who Joe Burrow's throwing to. They're going to go crazy. So, yeah, if you want to trade Etienne, trade him for a top tier. When I say top tier, a top 7 type wide receiver. That's what I would do. I think Etienne is going to be fine. I think Etienne is going to be a top 5 to top 7 back this year. I would keep Etienne, but if you must trade him for a high-class wide receiver. If you're going to trade Ford and London as a package, get you a receiver that's better than Zay Flowers. London right now is possibly going to go for, a tight end. You can trade London for a top 5 tight end. Maybe somebody likes London, and, you might be able to get a George Kittle. But after this past week, it's going to be hard to get a Kittle. So, with Ford, you can possibly get, a mid-tier tight end. Maybe you can trade Ford to a guy that has Dalton Kincaid. Kincaid is somebody I believe in, even with him not having a 2-week good start. Kincaid can play. He's a top weapon for Josh Allen. Once they connect, it's going to be tough to purchase a Kincaid. So, yeah, Ford can possibly get you a Dalton Kincaid right now, especially in redraft leagues. It's so easy to kind of mix and match and get the deals that you want in redraft leagues. So we looked at the running back position, just the top 12. We're going to look at the tight end position right now, right? You got guys like Isaiah Likely still number 1. Man, Brock Bowers is him. Brock Bowers is the number 2 tight end right now with 11 points the first game and then 18 points the next game. But the thing about Brock Bowers is he's getting heavy targets. 8 targets in week 1, 9 targets in week 2, and caught 9 out of 9 for 98. That's solid. That's 18 points. If he adds a score to this, man, he's going to the moon. So Brock Bowers could potentially end up as the tight end 1. But the thing about the tight ends is, and I'm going to be looking at which tight end is going to get the touchdowns. That's going to separate, in number. Augusto writes, already have Bowers. I'm going to try to sell London and Ford for an RB and ETN for Chase, as you said. If you can get Chase right now for ETN, that's solid. If you can get London and Ford for RB, that's dope. That's dope. Maybe get you a upgrade. Maybe London and Ford for a guy like I like Kyron. Some people don't like Kyron. Maybe London and Ford for a guy like Jonathan Taylor. There are only specific backs or a few backs that I trust. That's Gibbs, that's Bijan, that's Kyron, that's Jonathan Taylor. So there's a few backs out there that I trust. Even a guy like Brian Robinson Jr. If you can trade London right now for Brian Robinson Jr., I am okay with that deal. That's a smash. I think that Brian Robinson Jr. is going to have a heck of a year this year. He's going to have 1,000 yards. Even with Eckler being there, anytime you have a mobile QB, it's just a boost for the RBs. Andre writes, what are your thoughts on Laporta, bro? He's getting no target. So with Laporta, I try to warn people that he might have a down year. And it's not that he's not good. It's like, okay, the NFL has seen more of Laporta, right? The NFL is going to try their best to, take him out of the game. Now, if Amon-Ra St. Brown doesn't play, let's see what he looks like with no Amon-Ra St. Brown and then him being the focal point along with Jameson Williams. If he's not getting targets with Amon-Ra St. Brown potentially being out, let's say Amon-Ra's out and Laporta's not getting targets, then something is wrong. Something is wrong. Maybe the NFL has figured him out. Maybe it's been tough matchups. But Laporta is great. He's more of a dynasty guy for me than redraft. One of my guys drafted Laporta in the second round of his redraft. I said, you shouldn't have done that. If there was a tight end that I would have took a chance on in the second round in redraft leagues, it would have been Kelsey. But Kelsey hasn't even looked good himself. Says, I have both Laporta and Bowers. Should I move one? You can move Laporta and see what you can get, but who really wants Laporta right now? Maybe you wait for a Laporta breakout game and then you move him. But keep Bowers. Like right now, Bowers is hot. He's getting targets. Bowers is the one I trust out of these two right now. Keep Bowers in there. And then once Laporta has a breakout game, see what you can get for Laporta, especially if this is a redraft league. So looking at the tight ends, likely at 1, Bowers at 2, Kittle at 3, McBride at 4, Hunter Henry at 5, Gesicki at 6, Pitts at 7, Ertz at 8, Frymuth at 9, Foster Moreau at 10, Chig at 11, and Dallas Goedert at 12. I mean, the number 12 tight end has 13 total points. 13 total points, and that's where we are right now. Outside of the top 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 guys, these guys have 20 points or more. That's Gesicki with 20, Hunter Henry with 22, McBride with 26, 28 for George Kittle, 30 for Bowers, and 30 for Likely. So when you dissect this, Likely has not been consistent. I mean, he had an off game. He had 4 points this last week. Bowers has been the most consistent tight end with 11 and 18. George Kittle, he's at 8 and 20. So it's like there's nobody really that has just been consistent. McBride, he had 8 and then he had 18. The only reason why McBride had 18 this week was because of the fumble recovery that he had in the end zone. So when you're looking at it, who is going to be that consistent tight end moving forward? Hunter Henry, he went bananas, man. 12 targets, 8 receptions for 109 yards. And that could potentially be a thing moving forward. Brissett is finding this guy. He's a safety blanket. He could be another guy that you want to target. I think that he's going to be a top waiver wire ad this week. Grab you some Hunter Henry and start him with confidence versus the Jets. Mike Gesicki finally had a good game. He had 16 points, was targeted 9 times for 7 receptions. All right, let's dig into some of these comments if you guys have any. Andre writes, Garrett Wilson is starting to worry me a little bit. Let's talk Garrett Wilson. It's not a Garrett Wilson problem. It's more of a Aaron Rodgers problem. And Aaron Rodgers is literally looking for whoever is open. So as much as, Garrett Wilson is scaring you, it should be Aaron Rodgers. He's the one that's scaring me because it's going to take him a while to kind of build rapport. We thought they were building rapport. And that's the thing, when you don't play preseason, it's kind of tough to kind of get some stuff going. After week 4, you have a better feel of who's who and who's going to do what. Now, Garrett Wilson week 1 versus the San Francisco 49ers, a really good defense, had 11 targets, caught 6 for 60, right? Then in week 2, he had 6 targets for 4 receptions and 57 yards. So he has not had over 57 yards in either one of those games. But what's encouraging is that he is the number 1 wide receiver. He did look good in that last game. I'm not gonna lie. That first quarter, he was going crazy. I think it was the game versus San Francisco. He was going crazy. I'm thinking like, oh man, the connection's gonna be there. It's gonna be interesting because Aaron Rodgers has never had a receiver quite like Garrett Wilson. So I don't know what they need to do to kind of make this thing work. New England has a great defense. Gonzo is shutting down wide receiver, so he's not even a guy that I'm recommending starting. But if Gonzo is not guarding Garrett Wilson, or if they're moving Garrett Wilson around, he could potentially get off. They did have 2 receivers go for 100 yards each with JSN and DK Metcalf, and it was hardly Gonzo guarding either one of those guys. What I want to do is I want to look at week 2. Let's see if we can find some gems. Let's see if we can find some guys that kind of went off or that had good weeks that we can potentially target on that waiver wire. All right, let's see. So, of course, if you're playing redraft, right, Derek Carr is going to be a top waiver wire target. I mean, 2 games of, 20 plus, and this is touchdowns being 4 points. So 2 games of 20 plus for Derek Carr. He's going to be a top waiver wire ad, really in any format, really, to be honest. Alec Pierce, he has looked good. He's looked pretty good. 2 solid games. He's another waiver wire target. You have Sam Darnold out there if you are, looking for a QB. Quentin Johnson had a great week 2 with 6 targets, 5 receptions, 51 yards, and 2 scores. Each time he scored a touchdown, I was shocked. I'm like, is this really going to be who Quentin Johnson is going to be moving forward? We don't know. But these are times when you want to grab these guys and kind of see Jameson Williams, Quentin Johnson. These are guys that are taking leaps and bounds on trying to become better pros, right? So why not grab them early on in the season and kind of see what happens? This is the same thing that happened with Puka. Same thing that happened with Kyron Williams. Folks were saying, oh, I don't know if this guy's worth it. Jordan Mason. He's a guy that people weren't unsure of week 1 and in week 2. Now he's done it consistently. So you want to get these waiver wire targets in, especially if there's no fab. Grab these guys and kind of see what they become. Gardner Minshew, he's solid if you need a desperation QB, especially in Superflex leagues. Who else? Jerry Jeudy has looked solid. I'm not gonna lie. There's a connection that's brewing between him and Deshaun Watson. He was targeted 6 times, 5 receptions, 73 yards. It seems like they're getting better and better, getting more and more comfortable. With 11.5 points and 12.3 points in back-to-back weeks, 2 solid double-digit weeks. He's a solid flex, especially if you're playing in a 4-flex type league, or 3-flex or 2-flex. He's a flex-type player with potential to get more, especially if he continues to build that rapport. Jalen Naylor, keep an eye on him on that waiver wire. 2 weeks of scoring a touchdown, 9 points and 14 points, respectfully. And we don't know what happens with Justin Jefferson. He's saying that he's not gonna miss a game, but you just never know. Jalen Naylor could potentially be that number 1 receiver on this offense, especially if Justin Jefferson is to miss time. This is the same thing that happened with Demarcus Robinson and Tyler Johnson for the Rams. Now, granted, neither one of those guys played well this past week, but guess what? If Cooper Kupp is out, you're looking at Demarcus Robinson and Tyler Johnson being the number 1 and number 2 wide receiver on that offense. And we know that offense likes to throw, so there's potential in targets there. Josh Reynolds, he was solid this past week, 5 targets, 4 receptions for 93 yards. So he could be a guy that you guys go and target. Braylon Allen, man, I don't know what becomes of Braylon Allen. I don't know if he's going to be this good consistently, but man, 7 carries, 33 yards. He had a rushing score, and he had 4 targets, 2 receptions, 23 yards and a score. So 2 scores for Braylon Allen. He has shown that, he could be a part of this offense. And if something was to ever happen to Breece Hall, Braylon Allen could be a top 12 back weekly. So he's somebody you want to keep an eye on. If you have space, get him on your roster ASAP, especially being that they're going to be playing on Thursday. If Breece Hall is to get hurt, then you have the backup. So anytime you have a guy playing Thursday, try to pick up the handcuffs because you don't know what happens. And if you're in a league where you can pick up and drop, or you can drop a guy that has already played, this is to your advantage. Destroy that waiver wire. I do it all the time. I pick up guys who are playing on Thursday to handcuff, just in case an injury goes down. Then I have a top tier option at either running back or quarterback or whatever the case may be. So yeah, Braylon Allen, he's going to be a hot name on that waiver wire this week. Mike Gesicki, if you're looking for a tight end, he played great. And then he's playing Washington. I know Washington does a good job versus tight ends, but as long as Gesicki's used as a wide receiver, that Commanders offense can't cover anybody. So that's a pretty good player to go ahead and target this week. Guys like Darnell Mooney, I've always liked Mooney, and this could be a potential shootout between the Atlanta Falcons and the Kansas City Chiefs. Eventually, Mahomes will start airing it out. Eventually, you're going to get a high-scoring affair from Patrick Mahomes, and if that happens, it just bodes well for Darnell Mooney. Now, Andre Iosivas, he's a guy that I'm keeping an eye on. Now, he had 4 targets, 2 receptions, 7 yards, 2 touchdowns, right? That's not ideal. But what I'm telling you guys is if T. Higgins is to miss the game, Iosivas and Jamar Chase could have big weeks versus Washington, being that Washington cannot cover any wide receiver. They can't even cover their mouth when they sneeze. Like they can't cover anything. You have Brandon Cooks. You have guys like Jalen Tolbert, mainly waiver wire picks for Dynasty. You have Juwan Jennings. That's a sneaky good one with no Deebo Samuels for the next couple weeks. He is a guy that's going to get uptick in targets this coming week versus the LA Rams. So Juwan Jennings is somebody that I'm looking at, especially in deeper leagues. Ray McLeod, he does nothing but collect targets. He had 7 targets in week 1 and 5 targets in week 2. Now you're probably saying, well, that's not a lot of targets, but man, he's a guy that Kirk Cousins is looking for in the slot. Okay, I trust Ray McLeod more than I trust Drake London or even Kyle Pitts right now. So if you're in a pinch, if you need a receiver, if you need a flex, especially in deep leagues, Ray McLeod, especially in Dynasty, is a guy that I'm targeting there. Jacoby Myers, if he's available, he's due for a good game. It's only, sooner or later, you can see this guy potentially get 10 targets for like 7 receptions and 70 yards. That's like a Jacoby Myers type of week that he was getting last week, finishing as a top 24 wide receiver. So those are some of my waiver wire gems that I'm looking at. Let me see if there's any more that I could grab. If you're playing in one quarterback leagues and if it's redraft and if you have space, maybe a Caleb Williams. I know he's kind of down right now. You guys are down on Caleb Williams, but it's only a matter of time before he starts to heat up. Ty Chandler looked good last week. He's definitely one of my targets. He had 10 carries for 82 yards. Who knows what that split becomes? I'm not saying that he's going to out carry or outproduce Aaron Jones each week, but he's a guy, he's sneaky, guy that I've always liked. If Aaron Jones is to get hurt, Ty Chandler becomes potentially a league winner. Tight ends. Foster Monroe, he had a good week 1, bad week 2. So with these tight ends, just stream them. Stream them based off of matchup. Try to look at trends. Try to look at that green and red when you're looking at Yahoo leagues or even ESPN leagues or several different leagues that kind of differentiate good matchups by green and bad matchups by red. It's not always right, but it's definitely something to kind of like keep an eye on. Antonio Gibson had 11 carries for 96 yards for the Patriots. The Patriots ran all over Seattle. Ramondre also had a pretty good game as well. Ramondre's the lead back, but Gibson is more than capable of taking some of that pressure away from Ramondre. He's a guy that started for Washington for several years. So Antonio Gibson is a pretty good back, and he's a guy that you can grab off of waivers. Not even have to put in a claim. You can possibly get him for free right now. Jonnu Smith had a great week, and whether it's doesn't matter who the QB is, it seems like Jonnu is going to be part of that offense, and he's going to be a safety valve for whoever that QB is. Michael Wilson is somebody that I like, especially in deeper leagues. It's only a matter of time before this guy goes crazy. In Dynasty, I love Jalen Polk. He's a guy that I was excited about in Dynasty drafts. The redraft doesn't have much of an impact right now. Even a guy like Christian Watson, not much of an impact right now, especially with Jordan Love being out. But there's a bunch of different gems out there. Go through the injury reports, see who's out, see who's, when people are coming back, and start to make these little sneaky moves right now. Injury to Tua could be an upswing for guys like Jonnu Smith and guys like Devon Chain. Antonio Gibson, sneaky, pretty good pick. I mean, we've seen the Jets give up rushing yards, so who knows if you need a desperation RB, Antonio Gibson could be a nice, decent RB2 or flex play this week, even with Ramondre being there. So we'll see how that matchup goes. So, guys, this is my time. This is the Talking Sports with Manny podcast. Appreciate you guys for hopping on the channel. If you guys are new to the channel, please like, please subscribe, and please share. If you have any questions about who to start or anything fantasy or anything in general, just drop it at the comment section, and I'll always respond to every single comment. Catch you guys on the next episode. I'm out. Peace.